Hello everyone and welcome to this video where we're going to build yet another small build. This should be quite satisfying, quite fun, and you may see some of my techniques as I go through this build. Now here you have a bunch of different vehicles. If you know, I love to make supporting vehicles that go in with my main large builds, my ships, my planes, all kinds of stuff like that, and all of these are the perfect support vehicles. They come with simple connectors and they have the ability to pair up, and in my opinion, my favorite thing is that they are relatively simple without many things that can cause extra lag if your computer is not super advanced. So what are we missing in this fleet? Well, it's the Argo. As you can see here, a very simple vehicle, very small, and the coolest thing about it is it can be used in a bunch of different types of terrain, including Amphibious. There are a lot of cool models in their XTV category, extreme terrain vehicle, and we're going to take some inspiration from this and apply it to what I have in mind. Now, keep in mind that there are a lot of different types of vehicles, including some other things, so who knows where the future will bring us. I want the XTV to be quite small and easily paired with my vehicles, so it's going to have a similar layout to this, but one thing that I will consider is a either tracked or wheeled sort of configuration. But as a base starting point, let's establish sort of the size. I'm first going to try it with wheels, so here it is compared to this, and of course what I'm going to want to do is give it a hull such that it is amphibious. It does allow it to swim. Now, one thing that I've always found in Stormworks is that swimming or floating with smaller vehicles isn't necessarily always the most optimized, and they kind of bob around and stuff, so we'll see how we can tie that in and make it work right. Skipped you a bunch of the steps, and here is sort of a nice-ish looking hull. And one thing that I'm going to want to do is have a front end, and you know what, this will actually work perfect with our new sort of seating that we now have, because previously this would cause issues, but now we can just go to seat and we have this saddle seat that can kind of be placed like this, and then our regular old seats that we can place in the rest of the spots. I do want this thing to be able to transport 4 people, and the reason for that is so you can actually have kind of, well, you know, if you end up rescuing someone or trying to move things, you have that ability. My preference when possible is to utilize previously made creations for max efficiency, and therefore allow myself to focus on the little details rather than the big and little details. So for example, with utilizing the same system in my ATV, including the same microcontroller and everything, I do just save myself a bunch of time without having to reinvent the wheel. But I will be reinventing a portion of the wheel in a way, because this thing is amphibious, so it will have a propeller and some stuff. The right front end for me is quite important, because as you see with this one, it's important to just look right. And even here, kind of the aggressive eyes. I know people were saying that it has angry eyes or it's angry, but this one looks too happy. A few things now, I've actually put on tracks to see how that works, and I've removed all the excess, meaning every single slot inside here is currently available for microcontrollers and things. I guess right here it's more like a pipe, and that pipe I think would be most efficient if I actually put it out here like that, but we'll see how that works. Anyways, lots of space. Just merging over some of the things, you can see the propeller is added here, and I'm kind of just putting the microcontroller parts in one by one. It is slow, but also this project is small, and you can see the front end a little more in line with my sort of rat styling. And the moment of truth, we've merged all the microcontrollers and I can actually start it up. It does require infinite electric for now, and the wheels are not right. Okay, so you can see that this is not working. I previously had a middle wheel here, a regular rubber wheel, because I saw people doing that. It speeds up the thing. When you have more tracks, it actually is a little slower, but in this case, we are kind of getting an okay speed, I guess, with using the track system. Right now, we're just using infinite electric. We're just kind of using the motors to make it go. But you can see it is quite versatile, and it actually has a lot of torque. Currently, we have two motors here in the front for the tracks, and this motor here for the propeller. So a combination of those things is used, and the idea that I have is to make it kind of a diesel electric, in essence, where you have a diesel generator powering a battery, which allows you to operate either the wheels or the propeller. As always, with such a small creation, finding a place to put a motor is always kind of an interesting struggle, especially in the case of this, where it has to be watertight. For something like this, it's much easier because it can just have access to the environment, but here it's got to be sealed up. So everything has been shoved in with the diesel tanks. They actually are watertight, so even though you physically see the hole here, they actually do store or are watertight, but you can see that's a very tight squeeze. Everything seems to have fit more or less, and we're off. It's working. I did put the wheel back in, but the diesel generator is chugging along, and we are powering up our tracks. I will fix the wheel, but again, it's nice to see us kind of on the go. The steering was not working quite well, so the C-beam lent us some of its steering mechanism. And now we're able to turn. So we're able to turn while keeping the motor on. If I turn on infinite electric, you can see that the generator is not quite keeping up with the system, so we'll have to do some rejigging there, but we are able to drive and steer. My skid steer is here because I'm going to bring in some of this technology, not the dashboard, but the using space to shift the transmission and to have the skid steer style steering, because these tracks are not as ideal as I thought. But there is another announcement. The motor is not doing a great job keeping up with the usage of the battery, and it's so small, or usage of the motors, and the engine itself is so small. It's quite compact, and while I'm proud of it, it's only a 3-cylinder, and the demands are exceeding what I can pump out of it. And yes, I can fine-tune it, but overall I think this is a vehicle that will be purely electric. For even the intake here would have to kind of be a snorkel style thing like this, because it's so low to the water, and then we stall out the engine and stuff. So we're just going to convert it to battery. This actually allows me to put in 2 of these medium batteries, and I'll fill the rest of the space with a bunch of small batteries, and that will give it actually a better range than that motor diesel generator system ever could. So I actually did start again a bit with the quad setup, because I wanted to just extract its parts one-to-one in this new creation, especially considering we've now gone to full electric. So I've grabbed the electric version of the quad and I'm just slowly extracting the parts, and they'll give us a nicer starting point. And the reason I like moving things like this rather than moving the logic is because I know that this logic is already connected properly, so it saves me having to manually change the nodes. And while it does look silly right now with the 4 wheels, it does seem to look kind of nice, and it's too fast. It actually kind of reminds me of like Mario Kart, when you like step off the line and the thing just like flies like this. It almost looks a bit ridiculous, like kind of like a go-kart. But that aside, this speed is obviously ridiculous, but the idea is there. And the nice thing is, because of my ECU here, I can just adjust this to like 0.3 and that'll probably be enough. So to get the thing watertight, which the bottom already is, we got to close off these areas here. And what better way to close them off than with batteries that are going to extend our range. So we'll do that, and that pretty much sealed except for this space. That should do it. And we now go into our microcontroller here, which has the space button transmission, but I do have to add some things. In fact, what I'm going to do here is add a button that will change it into amphibious mode and driving on land mode. I didn't quite feel like showing my work, just put on some music and did the microcontroller. Is very simple. In essence, what I did is what was previously going to the left wheel, right wheel, I just added a numerical junction that has an on-off button for the amphibian mode. And if it is on, it goes to the rudder. And likewise, over here, if it's on, it goes to the propellers, and if it's off, it goes to the wheel motors. Now, because there is one propeller motor and there are 2 wheel motors, I actually have a function here to multiply the propeller motor by 2. So if I'm giving a max of, let's see here, 0.3, going to both wheel motors, it's actually 0.6 going to the rudder. And this thing we can just plop into our vehicle wherever it fits, like that. And we just got to seal off the area. So I did remove those batteries that I earlier put, but we'll seal it up and take it for a spin in the water. This is my favorite part of the test. It's to actually do the practical side of the water. So here the thing sank. Is it even watertight? Alright, well, I always move around like this inside the body. You could see that there is no kind of water, so it is watertight. It just needs some anti-mass blocks. Here we have the mass board. You could see it either adds or subtracts mass. And we're just going to go ahead and put some inside the vehicle here. You can see we got space, and I have one here in the back. And that is, well, too much anti-mass. We're going to space. So we fight anti-mass with more mass, so I can put batteries in, more batteries, many more batteries, to kind of combat what we just saw. But it is a bit of a fine line. You see that actually made it sink again. So we were just on the cusp, and the smaller the creation, the harder this is to balance. Alright, we did it. So finally it worked. I did a bit of playing around with the different settings, and you could see that because, well, the character has mass, and as I move around on the thing, it does kind of flounder around, but the main idea is there. And as you can see, we turn on the amphibious mode and off we go with the propellers. So this is kind of the first test. Whoa, that rudder is way too okay. So that's why we do tests. So the rudder itself is crazy. Previously I had another set of little rudders on the bottom. Now I put a battery there. So this should actually give us a bit of a better system. So when we start driving, you can see the big rudders here actually do give it much more control than the small ones, especially when they're mounted underneath. So now we could actually steer properly. I did put the lights on the side. They only come on when we're in amphibious mode automatically, so you're kind of a boat. And when you're on land, those come off. But you can see we're able to steer. And if I kick off the amphibious mode as we hit land, well, now we're driving around on land and the propeller is going to stop spinning. The wheels are working. Now I did add those anti-mass blocks, and when you brake hard, the thing does want to, you know, flip over on its front. So the logical thing is to decrease the brake value, but also put high grip wheels, which are going to slow the whole thing down. It gives it a little more torque, the ability to climb up obstacles and such. And while, you know, still does that if you slam on the brakes. That's where we adjust the brake value to 0.2. So with that being reduced, and as you know, you may have noticed, the actual throttle is now 0.25. So it does go a little slower, but it goes plenty fast in my opinion. Like, look at the background there. So we're still going relatively fast, and if I slam on the brakes, I'm holding the stop and it did not flip. So that's a good sign. It does not have tracks. It does just have kind of 6 wheels, and right now we're having proper like steering, but I think I'm gonna go to a skid steer system steering here in a second. Did add some equipment and other little details, but I gotta get it colored right. So we're gonna start off with this yellow that I use on all of my rat creations, or most of them, and then just kind of put some subtle differences all over the place until we kind of iron out the specific styling that I'm trying to go for here. The issue with something like this is you don't want it to look like a blob, especially it's small, so you have to have kind of a very clear styling pattern. And for me, the easiest thing to do is just throw on some stripes like that at a bare minimum, but I think we could do a little better than that. Okay, so the inside black with the beige seats. Exterior actually mostly black, except for the yellow part on top. So I think that does look quite sharp actually. And if you kind of consider taking this thing out and cruising around, it does look like an amphibious vehicle, which is cool. I'm just not sold on this front. Like right now I'm just using triangular blocks here for more buoyancy, but this is an interesting concept. A little blockier. I do like this sideline. I've been showing this actually, especially in my other UTV build, when I have kind of a bunch of random blocks, I do like to put in one of these inverse pyramid pieces and then color it differently, because it gives you pretty much a clean line rather than using a bunch of painted blocks like this that are pixelated. This gives you kind of just clean lines. This is also a possibility, but I'm kind of not seeing it. It still looks a little funky. Ignoring the front for a second, I've put in the skid steer steering so you could see that it actually does now handle without the wheels turning, which I think looks a little bit better for something like this rather than having kind of the front wheels turning around. And you can see we could rotate on the spot, which is kind of nice. It does go very fast in its rotation, but it is what it is. And of course, when we go forward, it's quite stable and nice. And again, like I did last time, if you drive off this, we can turn on the amphibious mode and it should surface. It should stay upright. It is small, so it does take a little bit of time and it will kind of bounce around, but it should balance itself and kind of give it the ability to be a nice little amphibious ride. And here it is in its final form. Maybe I make some small subtle changes, but the idea is mostly here. And you can see with the seats, you can carry 3 passengers and the driver operator. I do like the little lifting point here for towing in the center, so that's good. And we do have a bunch of lifting points located all over to allow it for easy sort of picking up and placing into creations. And what better creation to put this on than the Oma barge? So with this small vehicle, you can easily secure it even inside here, and then deploy it, and then pick it up with the crane. So there's 2 cranes. I probably would presume you'd use the large one, but the small one would still work, I think. And this would just give the barge some land access so you can deploy, do missions on land, and retreat it. Now, you probably won't want to take massive long excursions with this, but you certainly can go between land and sea, and you can take it on some trips through the whatever hills and things if you don't want to be running around. I do want to thank all of my supporters who receive early access. They actually have access to both the new Rat Amphibious and to the alpha of the Oma barge. So thank you so much for supporting me, and hopefully you're enjoying these creations. Take a look at becoming a supporter if you are interested in receiving early released creations and early released videos and stuff like that. But I do want to thank each and every one of you for watching the videos, for supporting, for pretty much commenting, being a part of the community, all that good stuff. I really appreciate it, and of course I would not be here without you. So I do think that is fantastic, and I enjoy reading the comments, engaging with the community, all that good stuff. So thank you so much. Hopefully you enjoyed this little video. I will be making a video for the actual barge in the same manner, but it's taken like 2 months, and between all of my other projects that I have going on in real life, it's kind of taken a bit of a back seat. But don't worry, I'm right here. I'm planning on releasing it. I'm planning on working on it and getting everything up and running properly. So stay tuned for all that. And until next time, happy Stormworksing, everyone.